Alright, so we're doing U-joints here. The drive shaft, I've already taken the old U-joints out and I went through and cleaned it up, sprayed it with some rust converter and then epoxy chassis paint, because why not? It's out, might as well clean it up. When you definitely want to make sure you go back through and wire brush the bores, and then I wiped them out with some acetone just to make sure there wasn't any grease or debris. Take a pick or a small screwdriver and get in and clean the grooves out and make sure the snap rings seat all the way. They will fill up with junk eventually if you want to get those out. So you've got some nice Dana spicers, greasables going in. I chose greasables because they're a pain in the butt to get to, and I wanted the end cap grease fitting because once this is installed in the car, it's really difficult to get to. You'll pull off two end caps you're going to be pressing. This particular drive shaft has bolt-on yokes on both sides. It has the U-joint straps. So I taped up the sides that are going to go into the yokes and use the straps just so they don't come off and get dirty or you drop the needle bearings out. U-joints have needle bearings up inside the end caps here. And the last thing you want to do is drop one of these and have needle bearings bouncing all over the shop, picking up dust and dirt, and then try to get them back in, get them clean, make sure you have all of them. It's a pain in the butt. These U-joints actually come with a plastic or a nylon thrust washer inside as well for wear. Ordinarily the ends of the trunnion would just ride into the bottom of the U-joint cap, and it can be a pretty bad wear spot if you have enough pressure on the yoke or enough run out on the drive shaft. But these keep them nice and quiet and help keep the bearings lubricated. So the first one's relatively easy. Now the trick is you don't want to abuse these too much, because if I tap this with a hammer or drop it, those little roller bearings are going to pop out and it's a pain in the butt. You got to try and get them back in there. So you want to handle them pretty carefully. But what we'll do is we'll use the trunnions and keep them nice and clean. Notice I didn't put it down in any dirt, and I'm checking it as I pick it up. Keep the trunnions. You can use the trunnions to keep the needle bearings located around the outside of the cap so they don't fall down in the center and have to juggle with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these caps, and this will slide in part way, about there. And then I'm going to use the U-joint trunnion and verify again the needle bearings are all intact or where they should be. Fit this in. I'll show you this way so you can get a better view of it. I'm going to fit this through and then drop it down into the cap, and then that will keep the needle bearings placed so they're not going to fall out of the cap. Now we're going to make sure we hold this cap up. We don't want this U-joint to fall out the bottom. And then we can give it a little nice and even. I'm not hitting it terribly hard. Alternately, if you have a C-clamp, you can use that. These shouldn't take a whole lot of pressure to go through. They get pressed in. And again, we're just trying to press it in so that it clears the snap ring groove on the outside. Notice the trunnion is still engaged in that cap, so it's keeping the needle bearings from falling out. It'll move nice and freely and it bottoms all the way. If you drop a needle bearing, falls in the backside, the trunnion won't be able to go all the way into the cap, so you'll have a big gap there. It'll be pretty obvious. There we go. It's a little stiffer than the other end. This one is actually a little stiffer than the other end. I'm going to see if I can get it to cooperate a little more here. There it goes. I don't want to beat up that Zerk fitting thread, so I'm going to use the socket here. And notice I've got one finger holding up on that U-joint, so it's not falling out of the cap and letting the needle bearings go anywhere. There we go. And we are just clear of the snap ring groove. We should be able to go. The only pain in the butt about these is you can't really put the Zerk fitting in with the snap ring in. So I'm going to put the snap ring in right now as kind of a placeholder while I press the other side in. And then I'll have to pop the snap ring back out again to get the Zerk fitting in. See, it snaps nice in the groove. That side's good to go. And there we go. And we slide this one in. Should be able to get it to engage the trunnion on the U-joint, and you can slide the U-joint into the cap a little bit to make sure we've got good capture on the needle bearings. So I'm about centered between the end caps right now. I know I'm engaged on both sides. Walking up the cap a little bit, I'm going to slide it down. They do make press tools for this too, but a C-clamp works just fine. You can use the vise I've used in the past, or use the old socket method. This one's a little tight too. Don't want to cooperate. So there we go. Good. Problem with the C-clamp sometimes is the cap cocked in the bore a little bit, so it kind of got stuck. Still nice and free. I know I don't have any bearings strapped in there. Everything's still happy. And just about clear of the snap ring. Alright, you can hear it gets solid when it gets to the bottom there. You'll notice these kits often come with 3 different sets of snap rings. The copper standard size are about 59 thousandths. I believe the yellows are like 61 and the blues or grays are like 63. If these get worn out, or when you get it all done, there's too much slop in the U-joint, and you can feel that with your fingers. You might want to step up to a little bit of a thicker O-ring. Pushes the caps together a little bit. If you end up with a sloppy U-joint where there's too much travel between the caps, the caps are pulled apart because the U-joint's flared, or the yoke is flared, or because the grooves are worn out, you'll end up with too much run out on the drive shaft. And the drive shaft will actually move back and forth. It'll orbit instead of just rotating. We're going to use the standard copper O-rings. These are the standard width snap rings. These are the standard size. And once it gets all done together, we'll check to see how much side play it has. And if I need to use a thicker one, I will, but I don't think I will. Those are nice in the groove. And that is a tight joint, and it's tight because this cap is actually over pressed into the bore to clear the snap ring. So what we need to do now is walk this cap back up a little bit so it seats against the bottom of the snap ring, and that will free this joint up. I can move it with my hands, but it's tight. So the way we do that is take a little block of wood on each side to cushion it, because you don't want to beat on these journals. And support those caps. Actually, I'm going to turn this around so it's easier for you to see on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a block of wood here to support the journals, because you don't want to beat on these or dent them in. And this is the snap ring we just put in, and I know that the cap is recessed a little bit. It's not quite pressing against this, and so it's leading to a bit of a tight joint. It's movable, but it's a bit stiffer than I want. So what I'm going to do is support the ends of this U-joint, and I'm going to strike the top of this yoke. And what's going to happen is the U-joint's going to push the cap up and seat it against the bottom of the O-ring. And look at that. Perfect. So this one's nicely done too. I'm going to pop this back out and put the snap ring in, put the Zerk fitting in. And these are basically just hand tight. You can feel the hex bottom against the cap. And just a little bit of pressure with your hand, and that's it. They don't take a whole lot because they're hollow and they're just aluminum or zinc, so if you try and really crank on it, you'll just snap it off. And then you got to try and extract it and get into the zerk. It's a pain in the butt. So put our snap ring back in. Unfortunately, the way they make these snap rings, there isn't enough room around the zerk to get the socket on there to put it back in. So you got to pull the snap ring back out. Just making sure the snap ring is nice and seated in the groove the whole way around. Actually, a little bit of pressure on that side, so I'm going to give that a love tap down. Want to make sure the snap ring is engaged in the groove the whole way around. And what's happened is I took it back out. It was came up a little bit. There we go. Make sure this one's seated too. We're just about done at this point. Our drive shaft's ready to reinstall in the car.